In the first 24 hours of the formation of our universe, there was no water, there was no light, nor would there be for millions upon millions of years. And yet, the biblical book of Genesis says that water pre-existed the formation of the universe, and that day and night followed one another in the first day of creation. And on the second day, Genesis reports, God created an arch in the middle of these chaotic primordial waters to separate them and create a sky for the earth, which was soon to follow.
And God said, Let there be a firmament in the midst of the waters, and let it divide the waters from the waters. And God made the firmament, and divided the waters which were under the firmament from the waters which were above the firmament. And it was so. And God called the firmament heaven. And the evening and the morning were the second day.
The Hebrew word translated as firmament in the King James Version of the Bible is rakia. It is from a root word meaning to expand by hammering, to stamp out into thin flat sheets, to stretch or overlay. Related words are used to describe the fine workmanship of metalcraft, of hammering out thin layers of precious metals like gold in order to lay them over statues or other ornaments. Like other Near Eastern neighbors, the early Hebrews believed the world to be capped by a solid dome. Recognizing the clash with modern science and what we know of the permeable Earth's atmosphere, some Christian apologists have tried to rescue Genesis and assert that the biblical text is vague, and that the rakia is intended rather to refer to that which serves to separate the earth from all that is beyond it, that is, what we call the atmosphere and interstellar space. The atmosphere and interstellar space, however, can hardly be confused with the biblical firmament. Interstellar space is the physical space within a galaxy, not occupied by stars or their planetary systems. As we'll see later when we visit Day 4 of creation, it is the sun, the other stars, and planets of our own solar system that God places physically in the rakia. Other passages within the Bible further confirm the solid nature of this dome. It is a surface over which birds fly and the clouds move. Upon it God can sit on his throne. It is variously described as tin or crystal, and it has windows embedded within, with which God opens to allow the waters held above it to pour onto the earth to flood it, save Noah and his ark. This verse of Genesis 1 clearly indicates that the firmament was intended to separate waters above and below it, like a bubble arising in a pool of liquid. The word used for waters here is the same as used in the opening verses of the creation story, the primordial waters that pre-existed all creation. It is the same word used to describe the waters of Noah's flood, the water of the Nile, the water Moses drew from the rock at Horeb. This is water. Again, trying to rescue Genesis, some apologists advance without contextual support that these waters were the originally created basic building blocks of matter that the earth was made from, and otherwise became all that was created outside of our atmosphere and or our solar system. But from a careful, contextually aware reading of Genesis and the rest of the Bible, we know this is not true. The firmament of Genesis 1 is the ancient notion of the sky as a large, solid arch separating the earth below from the mystery beyond. The dome created a bubble of sorts in the middle of the primordial waters, an atmospheric oasis in the otherwise chaos of creation. Within this dome would be the air and clouds of our atmosphere. But such creations were late comers in the formation, not just of the universe, but of the earth itself. For the earth did not begin as a bubble of trapped air. The earth had a much more violent birth.
4.5 billion years ago, the Earth was formed from the collisions of millions of meteors in the young solar system. Temperatures were so high that the planet's surface was a molten ocean.
During the accretion of material to the protoplanet, a cloud of gaseous silica must have surrounded the Earth, to condense afterwards as solid rocks on the surface. What was left surrounding the planet was an early atmosphere of light elements from the solar nebula, mostly hydrogen and helium, but the solar wind and Earth's heat would have driven off this early atmosphere. This changed over some 500 million years when Earth accreted to about 40% its present radius. The gravitational attraction retained an atmosphere which included water.
4.4 billion years ago, the Earth was around 100 million years old. Meteors still crashed into the planet, but gradual cooling of the core had allowed most of the surface to solidify into a crust of dark volcanic rock. And even then, at this early stage, water was forming on the surface. As it evaporated off the surface, huge amounts of water vapor rose to join the carbon dioxide in the young atmosphere, forming thick, blanketing clouds.
It would be another 2.5 to 3 billion years before the atmosphere, as we know it, would form. And this only after life had already taken form on the planet, spewing oxygen into the air, an event which was still a number of days away in the Genesis account.
As the iron left the oceans, they changed from green to blue. When the oxygen moved on to the atmosphere, it diluted the remaining thick carbon dioxide and cleared the air. After nearly 2 billion years of oxygenation, the blue planet was born. The Earth now had its blue oceans and its blue sky.
In Genesis, Day 2 saw the formation of a solid bubble in the midst of a chaotic, primordial, universal ocean. This bubble was the Earth's sky, creating the space below the waters of creation and above the seas of Earth, across which birds would fly and clouds would drift. As yet, however, there is no Earth, no life in the biblical creation story, and to create the atmosphere of our planet, science has discovered life was required to pump oxygen around the globe. The hard surface of the planet would have already formed. The universe itself would have been over 10 billion years old. The Earth around 3. Just more of what Genesis got wrong. This hasn't stopped those who believe in distorting the text of Genesis, however, in order to try and make it fit with modern scientific discoveries. Gerald Schroeder again completely ignores the context of Genesis and assigns the second day of creation to an indefinitely long period of time in the formation of the universe, asserting unsubstantially that the creation of the firmament was actually the formation of the Milky Way galaxy. Again, a clear reading of the text alone refutes this idea. In no sense does the Hebrew rakia equate with the entirety of the Milky Way. Details from Day 4 will, as we shall see, also help refute this idea.